The following program is presented by Pro Sound and Video.
Okay, Lewis. I need you to tell me where you are, okay? I just need you to tell me where you are. A, yes, keep going. F, T, E, R, S, H, O, C, K, aftershock. I don't know what that means, okay? I need you to tell me where I can find you. S, T, A, R, T, S, N, O, W. Aftershock starts now. What does that mean?
Today on Broward Teen News, we're at Cypress Bay High School to learn more about the home of the Lightning.
Stay tuned to learn about the best baseball pitcher you've never heard about.
Find out why trains just aren't chugging the way they used to.
Discover why these areas are so eerie.
And so much more. Hello and welcome to Broward Teen News Cypress Bay Edition. I'm Nicole Borman.
And I'm Alex Land. Today we're going to be looking back at this past year.
We'll be celebrating our fantastic 14th season of our weekly news show by showing some of our best segments.
On the last Broward Teen News episode, Michael gave the spotlight to a local South Florida community member.
Patrick, who runs a donation-based food drive in Broward, has been feeding families for years, and he's still going strong to this day.
Here's Michael to catch up with him.
We've been here once before. Patrick's story is one we've already heard.
It's humbled us.
There it is. Yeah. You laughing?
But trust when I say, you have to see it to believe it.
We probably got about another 30 good-sized boxes full of non-perishable foods.
Because word of mouth alone can't do all this justice.
Everything's been donated today. There's 48 bags that are sold today.
It's been almost 8 months since we last met with Patrick.
People out there want to help people.
And from the looks of things,
This past year in 2020 has just been phenomenal to see the hearts of other people that want to help other people.
he hasn't slowed down one bit.
So we were able to do food distributions, the actual drive-thrus. We did about 6 of those in 2020, with an average of about 600 to 700 cars per food distribution.
In fact, he's even sped it up a little.
Honestly, we gave away more food to people in need in 2020 because of COVID than we've done in 5 years. It's just amazing.
Of course, this is no task for just one caring soul, but an entire community of them.
That's how much food we got. It was only 9:30.
People are getting back to work. You know, things are not back to normal, but they're getting back to normal. So we've got a lot of people back to work. So they know there's still a lot of people out there that are in need. So the outpouring of giving's just been phenomenal. People they just want to help. And it's just amazing to see that.
And help people do.
We prepped 50 bags today. We sold all 50.
Time
That's a little 16-foot U-Haul truck right there.
and time again.
So we got like car after car after car after car. Me and my wife were looking at each other going, what are we going to do with all this? We were like overwhelmed, totally overwhelmed.
Many might struggle to describe the joy such an experience would give, but not Patrick. He's already found the words.
That was a real blessing.
Michael Orlando,
This is my passion. This is where I get my joy from.
CB-TV.
Always want to help.
Hey, I'm Oliver. Now, time is finite, precious, and something you can't change. Or can you? Now, let's say you can travel through time. If you're not careful, you could wind up in what is known as a time paradox. But what exactly is a time paradox? Let's say you traveled back in time to before your grandfather met your grandmother and killed him. Kind of rude if you asked me, but logically speaking, you would never have been born. But if you were never born, how would you have killed him in the first place? That brings up the question, would you have created an alternate reality? Now, scientists have proposed the question that our reality is only one out of an infinite number. where every possible combination of events has occurred, such as one where I never even made this video, or one that I did, but something is off. Where did that guy go? Weird. But whatever. Hey, I'm Oliver.
Good evening, and welcome back to the Fancyman's Guide on Doing Things, where this episode I shall discuss the etiquettes of food preparation. Want to consume a fruit or vegetable? Don't cut off the skin like a fool. Consume with the skin on for full nutrients and flavor. Delicious. Cooking food in a pan. Don't simply cook using only your stove. Flambe your food for maximum fancy potential. Delightful. Want to fix yourself some soup? Don't only add the soup's components. Make sure to spice it up as much as possible. That includes salt. Thank you for tuning into my show, and have a tasteful evening.
In America, trains aren't usually the first choice for people when traveling long distance.
But that's just not the case in a lot of other countries, so what's holding back trains in America?
Well, Lucas set out to solve that exact question.
This is LNER's Azuma, a high-speed English train I had the chance to ride last summer. The 2-hour trip I took from York in northeast England down to London cost about £18. Throughout Europe and Asia, high-speed trains have been flourishing for years, connecting people from city to city. So, why do American passenger trains still look like this? Let's rewind for a moment. Back in the 19th to early 20th century, train travel in America was the most popular form of transportation, taking a crucial part in both the Industrial Revolution as well as the birth of countless cities and towns. But by the 1950s, the popularity of automobiles and highways, coupled with the rise of airplane travel, meant trains were no longer seen as efficient anymore. In 1970, President Nixon signed the Rail Passenger Service Act, creating the nationally funded rail company Amtrak. This was done as an effort to preserve American rails and revitalize train services. But it didn't quite pay out in the end. Underfunded and running on century-old rails, Amtrak trains have been subject to numerous accidents over recent years, some even fatal. So, what can we do to fix America's rail problem? Well, the US is very much a car-dependent nation, and the automobile and oil industries play an important political role. However, with surging highway traffic and cluttered airports, more attention is being given to high-speed rail. Have a look at Brightline, for instance, a private rail company operating daily trains from Miami to West Palm Beach. Additionally, it plans on reaching its high-speed service to Orlando in 2022. While it may be a rocky road ahead, the thought of riding a sleek, high-speed train may no longer be a far-fetched reality. Luca Vieira, CCNNLive-TV.
One day, 3 people and 1 dog, 1 survivor.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's really hard, obviously, surviving on the island, away from all civilization. But I talked with Sammy, and we have a plan. We're gonna vote out Morgan tonight, so it should be really easy. So yeah, easy vote.
Mentally, I'm doing amazing. Overall, I'm doing pretty well. I'm making a lot of new friends. I'm having really fun time. This is my game.
Quoi? Je ne comprends pas. Je suis supposée être en vacances.
Okay, survivors, once the votes are read, the person voted out must leave the tribal council area immediately. And now for the first vote. Morgan. Alex. Alex. Last vote. Alex. Alex, you need to leave the tribal council area immediately. Alex, the tribe has spoken.
You know, you can all go
Let me get one thing out of the way. I love animation. Whether it's 2D, 3D, stop motion, graphic design, indie, or Japanese, it is a very important place in my heart. So if I were to tell you that I've never watched a Ghibli film in my life, you probably would not believe me. For those that don't know, Ghibli is one of the most influential studios in the history of animation, pioneering and inspiring a whole new style of the medium. And yet, I always regarded Ghibli as just being the studio with the extremely beautiful background art, style, but never for the actual storytelling itself. So I decided to sit down and watch Howl's Moving Castle to see what Ghibli is all about. Right off the bat, I could tell why Ghibli movies are so special. They of course have the amazing world design and overall flair that deeply immerses you into the story. The nature-filled backgrounds are charming to look at and give you a sense of space and serenity. The actual animation itself is just astoundingly beautiful. I mean, look at these sequences and admire just how buttery smooth everything is, how much punch and flow the characters' movements have. The thing that surprised me the most is just how good the story is. The characters are interesting. You want to see how they evolve throughout the story, not just visually, but metaphorically. The movie is also extremely creative and imaginative with its visual style, using that to tell different aspects of the story, from wartime to peace, for example. Now, of course, there are things that weren't so captivating, like the pacing being a little too fast sometimes, and it just feeling at some points like a fever dream. However, I can look past that, as the glorious visual style and interesting story kept me hooked throughout the entire way. Overall, I'm pretty sad that I never watched a Ghibli piece in the past, but I'm also kind of glad since I can truly admire them for all they're meant to be. At least I know I'll definitely be watching more Ghibli films in the future from now on. As always, Luis Rodriguez, CCNNLive-TV.
Our furry friends have definitely enjoyed us being home more this year,
which gives us the perfect opportunity to get creative with their treats.
Here's Mia with a special edition of Teen Cuisine.
Hey guys, I'm Mia Batista, and on this episode of Teen Cuisine, or should I say, Oi, Canine Cuisine, I'll be showing you how to make dog treats.
For this recipe, you'll need 1 cup of pumpkin puree, 2 eggs, 1/3 cup of peanut butter, 2 cups of flour, and 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. Preheat your oven to 350. Then, in a large bowl, combine your pumpkin, eggs, and peanut butter. Stir that until it's completely combined. Next, add in your flour and cinnamon, stirring until it's just combined. Lightly flour a surface and then roll out your dough. Cut out your desired shapes out of the dough you just made and put them on a baking sheet. Bake for 20 to 40 minutes and then remove the treats from the oven. Let cool on a cooling rack and enjoy.
Okay guys, now that that's done, let's see what the critic thinks.
I'm Mia Batista, that's Lincoln, CCNNLive-TV.
House music. It's one of the largest and most popular styles of dance music in the world. From nightclubs to music festivals, these hypnotic 4-on-the-floor beats have captivated the world of dancegoers for generations. However, the story behind house is even more interesting. In the late 70s, disco was all the craze. Propagated by films such as Saturday Night Fever, which showcased the inclusivity of the genre, acts like the Bee Gees and Chic became overnight sensations, much to the anger of many rock fans. This all culminated in the now infamous Disco Demolition Night of 1979. During a baseball game in Chicago, thousands of rock fans stormed the field, purposefully blowing up countless disco records.
Oh, that felt good.
Too colorful for middle America, disco all but faded into the underground. Nevertheless, in the early 1980s, a new genre began to form from the ashes of disco. Black Chicago DJs such as Frankie Knuckles began mixing old disco and funk records with electronic drum machines and synthesizers. This new genre became known as house music.
So-called house music was first made in the creators' houses.
Just as it was gaining traction throughout American cities, house music quickly spread to Great Britain and Europe in the late 80s, where it became a cultural phenomenon. But the genre didn't stop there. The 1990s saw house music become a global sensation, with countless #1 hits being released every year, and new derivative genres, such as techno and garage, being made popular. What started out as an underground form of black music in Chicago has since become a worldwide hit. Luca Vieira, CCNNLive-TV.
Here at BTN, we have the pleasure of working with other schools in the area to really find out what's going on in South Florida.
Here's Christopher Columbus High School's very own Tommy Pozo to investigate on the local minimum wage dilemma.
With the new $15 minimum wage being implemented gradually throughout the state of Florida, many teenagers across the state are desperately looking for higher paid jobs. But the question remains, will small businesses like these be willing to pay this increased wage?
I just left my dead-end job because it was paying the current minimum wage, and knowing places like Target and Starbucks are paying $15 an hour, it's kind of like a no-brainer.
Jonathan Gonzalez is obviously frustrated.
The current minimum wage in the state of Florida is $8.65 per hour.
But lucky for him, Florida recently passed a bill that would increase the minimum wage to $15.
So starting in 2021, it would increase to $10 per hour and then $1 per hour for each additional year till you reach 2026.
While this bill sounds great for teenagers, for business owners, it might not make much sense.
I'm not going to be able to afford, 3 to maybe not even 1. I'm going to have to probably be here myself full time.
And as the minimum wage has increased, the percentage of teenagers employed in retail has dramatically decreased. In 2002, 14.5% of retail workers were teenagers, but in 2016, it dropped all the way down to 10.6%. Jonathan thinks an increased minimum wage would attract teenagers back to the workplace.
This is something that's really important for me as an 18-year-old college student. If I can work at a place that pays me $15 an hour, so I can be able to afford all my college fees, why wouldn't I try it out?
And as the economy continues to shift due to these rising wages, many teenagers will look toward the future with a hopeful perspective. For CCNN Live, I'm Tommy Pozo, reporting.
Marcus Rivero is a uniquely talented artist whose canvas is found on the shoes of athletes around the country.
Art was always a passion, but I never expressed it because I was into sports. And I kind of somehow, some way just stumbled into this, giving somebody a gift. And I realized then that when I was painting, the hours flew by like if it was seconds. And that's when I realized, wow, I really love what I'm doing. So in my life, the only people who have ever told me that I was good at art was my junior high art teacher and my mom.
Just by saying the first 3 digits.
He's accomplished a lot. At a very young age, he's always seen things out of the box, and he's always reached for those impossible dreams, like I like to say that they are. And the more he opens up and doors open up for him, the more he sees that the world is there for him to grab it.
And these dreams led Marcus to his first job of customizing shoes for players in the NFL.
And about 10 pairs in, Nolan Carroll, at the time he played for the Dolphins, slid in my DMs, sent me a message. So he tells me, I'm going to ship you 12 pair of Jordans. They're only available in black. Do whatever you want, just match the Miami Dolphins colors. I think out of the 12 pairs, 10 of them got sold. He never meant to sell them, but he was selling them for ridiculous amounts of money. And I never forget, he called me and he's like, I sold 10 of the shoes. I made like $5,000 or $6,000. It's all yours. But more than the money, he gave my number out to 8 Dolphin players. And before you know it, I had almost the whole league.
I think right off the bat with Marcus, man, I could feel his heart, and know that, man, he's somebody who really cares about people. He's someone who, when given the opportunity to, make an impact or bring into a certain initiative, and he has a way of pulling things together that's just so unique. It's like this mystery that's unfolding before your eyes.
And it's been a crazy ride to get to where I'm at now. But the way I look at it is I'm just going to ride it out, and sky's the limit.
Marcus will continue to pursue his dream as he gets closer with every step his cleats make on the field. For CCNN Live, I'm Adrian Boton reporting.
Thanks, CCNN.
While COVID-19 has kept us indoors for the majority of the year, it has not stopped us from telling powerful stories.
Like the story of one of baseball's most amazing yet rarely talked about players.
There is a fly ball deep to center field.
Most baseball fans won't recognize his name.
That is a strike.
Many wouldn't even be able to point him out in a picture.
Pitched a no-hitter against Pittsburgh.
Which is why it may just be a bit of a curveball to find out that this man used to be a baseball legend.
He was a Negro League baseball pitcher and outfielder.
and his legacy was taken away from him by segregation in the game of baseball.
Once a smash hit, he appeared in more than a few newspapers.
And the number is 7,854 newspaper references we have for his career right now.
Pete Gordon, for the past 20-odd years, has been doing everything he can to retell John Donaldson's story almost a century later.
What my job is to get rid of something called John Donaldson Who.
He says that Donaldson was one of the best ball players around.
His physical ability was different than anybody else had ever seen before that.
A real catch for any team lucky enough to get him.
I've seen guys with worse form in the Hall of Fame.
And he certainly isn't the only one saying that. Newspapers from the time seem to agree.
And they wrote about it in newspapers, and they'd say that thousands and thousands of people would show up where only a handful would show up if he wasn't there.
Which of course begs the question.
How is it possible I don't know this person? And it is possible because of what segregated America did to his legacy.
Barred entry from the major leagues because of the color of his skin. It's the injustice that almost every player in the Negro League felt.
In terms of what the color line embodied in baseball, they just systematically eliminated the possibility of baseball players to have a lasting legacy by keeping them out.
It's an injustice Donaldson worked every day to correct.
Stereotypes and prejudices of people is something that was hacked away at for years and years by men like John Donaldson and many, many others.
And it's an injustice Pete is trying to reverse, one game at a time. Bringing light to a forgotten figure in baseball history isn't easy work.
We're changing what history thinks of somebody, and that's a really hard job to do.
But Pete Gordon knows, the more you keep your eyes on the ball,
it's something that's really taken years and years of daily pursuit.
the more home runs you'll hit.
We put a larger-than-life statue of him up in his hometown, and in a time in the nation's history where they're tearing down statues of hate and racial indifference, we're putting a statue of a black man up in the South, and that was a really important thing.
Michael Orlando, CCNNLive-TV.
During the last couple months, images of unnerving yet oddly familiar places, referred to as liminal spaces, have been sweeping social media platforms like TikTok and YouTube. But what are liminal spaces? And why is the internet so obsessed with them? As stated by inaliminalspace.org, a liminal space is the time between the what was and the next. It's a place of transition, a season of waiting and not knowing. Usually, the term liminal space refers to a transitional stage in someone's life, after a breakup, before starting a new job, or the period between high school graduation and the next chapter in one's life. However, this collection of both real and fabricated images evokes the same sensation that defines these moments, a combination of fear and nostalgia. One of the most famous examples of liminal spaces are the back rooms. This idea originated from an anonymous creepypasta thread from 2018, which shows an empty yellow room with the words, "If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in an endless maze of carpeted rooms." The video game term no-clip, describing when a player passes through what are supposed to be physical objects. This idea of being trapped in an uncomfortable, isolated place, permanently cut off from the world you once knew, is the overall essence that radiates from these viral photos, bringing thousands of online users together. But what's the science behind all this? Why do so many different people with vastly different experiences claim to find these loosely connected photos so strangely familiar? According to a Tumblr post explaining this phenomena, the most logical reason is because our brains are hardwired for context. Every single place in these images was designed and created by a human with a certain purpose in mind. When these familiar places are taken out of their usual context, they can seem uncanny, eerie, or mysterious. For instance, areas we often visit, such as schools, shopping malls, and airports, were not created to remain empty. So, once we see these areas devoid of people, it elicits a sense of both familiarity and uneasiness. Whether you believe that these pictures are windows to alternate realities or simply find this peculiar trend interesting, we can all agree on one thing. Taking something out of its usual context can be extremely powerful. It allows us to look at something in a new, childlike way, causing us to appreciate the little things and give deeper meaning to the ordinary. I'm Isabella Chiappini, CCNNLive-TV.
Well, that wraps it up here from Cypress Bay. I'm Alex Land.
And I'm Nicole Borman. If you'd like to see more segments like this, make sure to like our Broward Teen News Facebook page.
See you next time.
Broward Teen News was brought to you by ProSound and Video.